Tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce.
This nonsensical email from Elon Musk acting like we're in kindergarten.
The new Trump administration is reveling in its bad knuckle approach to governing.
This is so sloppy, the way Elon Musk is handling this.
You don't report to work. You know, that's another scam. You know, who the hell, if I'm staying home, let's see, my golf handicap would get down to very low number. You'd be shocked if I told you the real number. But I would be so good, I'd try and get on tour. We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we've just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold. The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp and we're restoring government by the people, for the people.
Yes, an email went out asking for accountability, because if you're going to take taxpayer dollars from people's homes that could barely afford to take care of their kids, buy eggs under the Biden administration, you better damn well explain to us what it is you're doing with taxpayer dollars while you're working for the federal government. I was happy to get the email. I'll answer it. There's no problem here when you're actually doing your job, Jesse, like you said. So, people crying wolf on CNN and MSDNC, they can feel free to continue doing so. We're here to be accountable.
What did you do last week? The email demands employees list 5 things that they accomplished. The directive, previewed in a post by Elon Musk on X, threatens, quote, failure to respond will be taken as a resignation, close quote. And by the way, there's a deadline, a ticking clock here, midnight tonight. So here's the fallout. 5 agencies encouraging employees not to respond. The Department of Defense, the FBI, and the Department of National Intelligence among them. Those are some heavy hitter organizations there on your screen.
Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. The ultimatum coming just hours after President Trump urged Musk to get more aggressive as he works to fire thousands of government employees.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce.
But even some of the president's allies are taking issue with the approach.
If I could say one thing to Elon Musk, it's like, please put a dose of compassion in this. These are real people. These are real lives.
And while a few agencies urged workers to comply with the email, the FBI, led by Kash Patel, told agents to pause on responding. So did the State Department, led by Marco Rubio, telling staffers that no employee is obligated to report their activities outside of their department chain of command. The Pentagon also opted out just days after the president made major personnel moves there. He fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, C.Q. Brown, and the chief of the U.S. Navy, whom Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth once derided as inexperienced and suggested she was only promoted because she is a woman.
The president deserves to pick his key national security and military advisory team.
When you ask somebody if they've done something and then all they say is, why did you ask? You must be attacking me.
Yeah,
that's pretty
bullying.
much what's happening, bullying me, yeah. No, it's called doing your job. If you get paid, you have to do your job. And I'll be honest with you, here in the White House, nobody really had an issue with it. We're all so busy. I think that the American people know we're working hard. But if you are taking another job, if you are pretending to work from home, but you're not actually working, and American taxpayers are paying for it, you better be damn sure that President Trump's going to figure it out. DOGE is going to cut the waste, cut the fat, and you no longer have a job here. They definitely should have taken that paycheck when they were offering it to them for October.
Some of the work they do, most of the work they do, is critical and highly classified. Probably not something you should be responding to on an email thread about. The Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness at the Pentagon told employees, quote, when and if required, the department will coordinate responses to the email you've received from OPM. But for now, please pause any response to the OPM email titled, what did you do last week?
You have people crying, people protesting. If you're wasting American taxpayer dollars to sit outside and hold a beer can or complain about Elon Musk, I have a question for you. What are you actually doing for your constituents, the people that voted for you in? Because you're not serving America. So all of that, all the woke stuff, the DEI stuff, the woman that you just showed that got 20 million, there won't be any of that in this administration. It's just not tolerated.
But it's also raising a lot of questions, namely among them security. If you have 2.3 million federal employees writing back on an email chain about what they did last week, it can almost amount to a national security issue, laying out what all federal employees across the government are doing. So important to note there, but also questions of who will be combing through these emails to see what they accomplished last week. What is the threshold for adequate work when responding to this email? What if someone replied and didn't list out what they did? It wasn't 5 things that they listed out. A lot of questions about what this actually means, especially for a federal workforce of the scale I mentioned, 2.3 million people. This isn't a private company, this is the government. So it'll be interesting to see what's actually the fallout and the impact from not answering this email or answering it incorrectly.
But I think more importantly, what they're really trying to achieve is, I think we all know people who work super hard, are very dedicated and serious about their jobs. And we also know some people who probably aren't giving it their all. And I think what they're attempting to assess is, first of all, are you a real keeper? Are you somebody who's intense about doing your job and making the company better, or in this case, the country? Or perhaps alternatively, are you someone who maybe needs to think about your career choice? And maybe it won't include a future with the government. We'll see.
This is a businessman. He's trying to get to Mars. You know, he was really a darling of the left with his, electric car and everything. Yeah. Now he's kind of all in on this Trump thing, and Trump wants him to be more aggressive. He wants him to be more like him.
Which is one of those things where people are throwing all their hate at Elon, but really this message is coming from the top, and Elon is immediately responding so fast that he's shooting out an email that everybody else has to send an email back by Monday, which is a wild thing to do, I think, on a weekend. I don't know that all federal employees are expected to check their emails all weekend long. We, of course, as journalists and looking at breaking news, are very used to looking at emails and checking things all weekend long. I don't know that every government worker, depending on what position they're in, checks an email on Saturday and would be ready to respond by a given time with a looming threat by Monday. But it's interesting, there's actually quite a bit of internal pushback within the federal government on this, from the unions, of course. The federal workers unions are pushing back, but also federal departments, agencies, the Department of Defense telling employees that they're reviewing performance of its personnel. I mean, some of these agencies are saying you don't need to respond to Elon, to this email rather, I guess specifically. So I think there'll be a lot of confusion from federal employees who got this email as to whether or not they have to respond to it, and then what happens if they don't. I don't know. It's very interesting, and this is maybe one of those things where that might also be walked back. Some of the firings have been walked back. Some of the layoffs have been walked back. So we'll see.
Well, if you really want to get Elon's attention, tweet something, because he tends to respond on Twitter.
There's one cabinet secretary that is complying. It is Sean Duffy with the Department of Transportation. Let's walk through what he said on that post. The 5 things he says he did last week. Number 1, quoting here, paraphrasing, he said he terminated congestion pricing in New York. 2, he launched an investigation into California's high-speed rail project that cost several $1 billion over a number of years. 3, he said he saved $10 million a year by eliminating, quote, redundant and outdated landlines, end quote. He also visited the Air Traffic Control Command Center in Virginia to talk about the critical tech upgrades there and why we would need to make our air traffic control system the envy of the world. And 5, he said he went out to Burbank, California to tour a control tower out there and hear from those controllers about how to improve conditions and retain and recruit controllers. I should note, though, that this email was also received by air traffic controllers who voiced concern and confusion about what exactly this meant for them. The union telling their people to pause on replying until they got more clarity from the Department of Transportation about what exactly this meant.
Attorneys for federal workers saying in a lawsuit today that Elon Musk has violated the law with his weekend demand that employees explain their accomplishments or risk being fired. Now, this is an updated lawsuit which was filed in federal court in California. It was provided to the Associated Press. The lawsuit is trying to block mass layoffs pursued by Musk and President Trump, including any connected to the email distributed by the Office of Personnel Management on Saturday. The office, which functions as a human resources agency for the federal government, said employees needed to detail 5 things that they did last week by the end of the day today, stating, quote, no OMP rule, regulation, policy, or program has ever in United States history purported to require all federal workers to submit reports to OPM. This was filed on behalf of unions, businesses, and veterans and conservation groups, calling the threat of mass firings, quote, one of the most massive employment frauds in the history of this country, end quote. Now, Musk is leading President Trump's efforts to overhaul and downsize the federal government. He has continued to call on federal workers this morning, even as there has been confusion throughout the administration, and even having some top officials telling federal employees not to comply with this email request. Elon Musk posting early this morning on X saying, quote, those who do not take this email seriously will soon be furthering their career elsewhere. He has also supported President Trump's demand for employees to stop working remotely, also posting onto X, quote, starting this week, those who still fail to return to office will be placed on administrative leave. Musk also followed up by saying, quote, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week, claiming that a failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. The Office of Personnel Management sent out its own request afterwards, saying, quote, please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Although that message said nothing about the potential for employees to get fired for noncompliance. The deadline is listed as 11:59 p.m. tonight.
Elon Musk said that government workers will be placed on administrative leave if they don't return to work this week. This is, of course, an executive order that Trump had signed among his first days in office. Musk says that they were given a month warning, and if they don't come back, they are placed on administrative leave. We know that a lot of workers have been coming back into the office. It's been quite congested here in DC with some traffic and the metro lines being more full than years previously. But interesting to note that this is coming from Elon Musk, not from the White House directly, but from what is a senior advisor and special government employee.
These people are not getting paid minimum salary. We're talking about the average federal worker's annual salary and benefits is $144,000, and they're objecting to being asked just 5 little things that they may have done last week. Are you kidding me?
How dare the President of the United States tell people to come back and work in person and tell us what you do? I mean, that's all this is. And yet, oh my goodness, you would think this is something that you can never do. How dare they ask that? This is how out of touch, I think you had someone on order, this is how out of touch this town is with the common sense of regular Americans across this great country. And when I talk with folks, they're fired up about, they like what President Trump and Elon Musk are doing. They like the fact that there's a focus on, you work for the taxpayer, and if you're not working for the taxpayer, if you're not showing up to work, if you think you can work remote and not tell us what you do all week, that's not going to fly any longer.
I'm going to get letters from all these federal employees saying what we do is so important. I understand there are people who really do work their heart, but there are a lot of people who don't. Sure. And if they can't name 5 damn things that they do for us from little things from last week, I don't think they should be here. Do you?
You can name 5 things you've done today. I mean, I met with a member of the European Parliament today. I met with our personal staff. What's going on in our district? I met with our committee staff. We got 4 hearings this week. I mean, you can just got done with a meeting with the chairman, Republican chairman in the House of Representatives. You can go through. There's all these kind of things that you're involved in. If you can't name what you're doing, maybe it's because you're not doing much and not really serving the taxpayers like you're supposed to.
Well, whether they like it or not, Elon Musk and DOGE are saving taxpayers billions of dollars already, and they're going to continue to do so. We're going to talk about the court battles to stop them from doing that in a moment. But there are certain people, there's this idea that if he gets the $2 trillion in savings, we should cut a $5,000 check to every taxpayer in the United States, which seems, at first I was kind of wobbling about maybe it should go to pay down to debt, but no. Americans deserve to get payback right now. That's what they need. They want $5,000. But here's what, and I'm sure you've seen this clip.
It's their money.
I want to just play a clip.
It's their money.
Congresswoman Crockett came out with one of the most outrageous things I've ever seen. I'm going to play that and get your reaction. Roll it.
We are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you if you are unable to find a job, because I am telling people we are headed towards a recession.
First of all, it ain't your money, Congresswoman. Exactly. It's our money, and we should be able to decide how it goes to good use. And frankly, it'd be a lot of good use in people's pockets. Secondly, it just shows, like you said, how out of touch they were. $5,000 is a lot of dollars to the average American. Maybe not to somebody who's making her salary and benefits and perhaps trading stocks on the side. But for the average American, it's a lot of money. Go ahead.
No, I think you're exactly right. The money belongs to the people, the families of this great country. It's their money. It's not the government's money.
Many workers are not responding because their bosses told them they don't need to. Employees who work for the state, defense, justice, and homeland security departments.
Education, commerce, and transportation, on the other hand, told employees to respond.
So the Trump administration now telling agencies they can in fact ignore what Musk said entirely, adding even more confusion into closing hours before a threatened deadline. To reply or not to reply? That was the question roiling the nation's 2 million plus federal employees.
The morale is, of course, abysmal right now. We are being told we're not worth the money that is spent on us.
Workers, including Alex Berman with the Internal Revenue Service, were dumbfounded by Elon Musk, who on Saturday told the rank and file they'd have to share what they got done last week. Failure to respond, he said, will be taken as a resignation. It's something Musk also asked Twitter employees to do when he started layoffs there. A formal email from the Office of Personnel Management asked federal employees for replies by 11:59 p.m. tonight, with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week.
This is just another step in the demonization and harassment of employees who have only worked to serve the American people. The other thing is, who's going to read 2.4 million questionnaires?
Adding to the confusion was that decision by several of the largest federal departments to instruct workers not to comply. President Trump backed up Musk's original demands today.
I thought it was great because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government.
Alex Berman worries this kind of request will further erode the quality of the nation's public servants.
They are hounding good people and good workers out of the civil service. This will be taken as another anecdotal piece of evidence saying that we're not the good workers we know we are.
And Ed O'Keefe joins us from the White House. So Ed, when the music stops, what is the final White House guidance on this?
Well, this afternoon, it turns out, they told the heads of human resources, essentially, at all these departments, don't worry about what Musk sent around. You decide what goes on personnel-wise at your departments. But it was a pretty public split, right? You had the FBI director, Kash Patel, the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, 2 of the president's most loyal advocates out there for him, saying, ignore Elon Musk. You had the commerce secretary, Howard Lutnick, the treasury secretary, Scott Bessent, saying, no, listen to Musk. So amid that split today, the White House press secretary tells us, quote, everyone is working together as one unified team at the direction of President Trump. Any notion to the contrary is completely false.
And among these workers, there's real fear out there. Is that the whole idea?
It was the whole idea, Maurice. In fact, the person who's now serving as White House budget director told ProPublica last summer that he wanted to, quote, he wanted to make sure federal employees were, quote, traumatically affected by the changes that they would be making across the workforce. Whether they've reached the trauma stage or not is unclear.
Some people working in the Klaczynski Federal Building were walking on eggshells this morning. One 40-year Treasury Department veteran who works here and did not want to go on camera called the current climate overwhelming and mentally distressing. Across Jackson Street in the Metcalf Building, which houses the Region 5 offices of the EPA, employees are being told that they should respond to the email over the weekend that asked federal workers to reply with approximately 5 bullet points of what they accomplished last week.
The work shows what we're doing, and our supervisors hold us accountable to that standard that's in our position description, and this email is disrespectful and unwarranted.
This IRS employee said there is a lot of confusion in her office about how to reply, but she was not troubled by the request.
I worked on the audit and I wrote up the final report, and that's a lot to spend 4 days on.
But she also believes that the federal government does need to cut out some bloat.
If we're going to tackle the inflation and the deficit, we've got to cut. And I'm sorry people are going to get hurt, but everybody's suffering from inflation. So I feel bad for the government employees, but they're a small group versus the whole country.
And part of the DOGE plan is to sell off hundreds of government-owned buildings. Congressman Mike Quigley says the Klaczynski and Metcalf buildings are on the list.
The problem with this is you need a place where people work. The people who make sure we have clean air and water need a place to work. So there is a right sizing, but this isn't the way to do it. This is a sledgehammer when we really need a scalpel.
The work efficiency email causing morale in many offices to tank.
I think the undermining goal is, one, to demoralize us, to make us feel in a defensive position as if we're saying, you know, we didn't do anything that serves the American people.
But now that email order has been rescinded by President Trump. Lorraine Targo's telling me it's so frustrating because it seems to her that the lives of government workers and the essential mission that they serve at the EPA, for example, is just a game to the Trump administration.
Well, this morning, Elon Musk is getting criticism after issuing an ultimatum to federal employees over the weekend.
It comes as several top-level officers are removed at the Pentagon, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. NBC's Jay Gray has the latest from Washington this morning.
Hey there, good morning, Kaylin. Good morning, Megan. Look, the only thing we know for sure right now is that President Trump continues to be all in on his plan to pare down the federal government. But this morning, the White House appears to be getting at least a bit of pushback on that plan from inside the administration.
This morning, millions of federal workers wake up unsure if they'll have a job by the end of the week. President Trump pressing ahead with his aggressive government overhaul, delivering pink slips to employees across at least 18 departments and agencies.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce.
Around 1,600 USAID employees laid off late Sunday, a majority of the remaining staff placed on administrative leave.
Waste is pretty much everywhere. People ask, like, how can you find waste in DC?
Billionaire Elon Musk, head of the administration's self-proclaimed Department of Government Efficiency, emailing millions of federal workers over the weekend, asking them to list 5 bullet points outlining what they accomplished last week, adding on social media, failure to respond before midnight tonight will be taken as a resignation.
What Donald Trump is doing is illegal, it's violative of our Constitution, and it has to be stopped.
That message from Democrats echoed in weekend town hall meetings across the country.
When are you going to wrest control as the Congress back from the executive and stop hurting your constituents?
Pushback also coming from inside the administration. The FBI, State Department, National Institutes of Health, Defense Department, and NSA telling employees to pause on responding or not respond at all to the proof of performance email.
Now, we should point out other agencies, including Health and Human Services and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, have asked employees to respond by tonight's deadline. The Bureau of Prisons is asking for guidance before advising employees about how to move forward here.
It's just chaos.
This Seattle-based TSA agent is speaking out, anonymously, fearing reprisals. One of hundreds of thousands of federal employees who received this email from the Office of Personnel Management, demanding that they reply with 5 job accomplishments from the past week by midnight. Or, as Elon Musk posted on X soon after, failure to respond would be considered a resignation.
And you're not going to get unemployment, because if it's a resignation, then you can't apply for unemployment.
The Saturday email sparked confusion through several chains of command, leaders at multiple federal agencies directing their staffers not to reply, pending further guidance, hinting of a potential authority rift between newly confirmed agency chiefs and Musk. President Donald Trump weighing in today during an Oval Office sit-down with the French president.
If you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist.
This is a violation of labor contracts, labor law.
A group of federal unions filed an updated legal challenge in California Sunday to include the OPM emails demand, in addition to their previous filings related to the mass firing of workers. A hearing on that temporary restraining order is set for Thursday. The Transportation Department did order its employees to respond by OPM's deadline, including the FAA's air traffic controllers, many who, union leaders say, are working mandatory overtime 6 days a week.
Right now, this lawsuit filed by several groups, including federal unions in federal court in California, claimed that Elon Musk may have broken federal law and may not have the authority to be asking any federal workers to spell out exactly what they've accomplished on the job. Meanwhile, this comes as even more protests broke out here on Capitol Hill today. Take a look at this. This time it was postal workers unions who were protesting not only the DOGE move, but a possible proposal to move the entire postal service into the Commerce Department and under the control of the White House. Now, in this 5 things email today, Musk, through the Office of Personnel Management, said that employees had to respond, and if they did not, that could be considered a resignation. Virginia Congressman Jerry Connolly, the ranking Democrat of the House Oversight Committee, tells Fox 5 this has unleashed confusion across federal departments and agencies like the State Department and the FBI, which is telling employees not to respond. For his part, the president today said this email was genius.
We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people. Please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
They have at least 3 or 4 sets of guidance right now, and the deadline is tonight at 11:59. It's just chaos.
Now, as this day has rolled on, there have been increasing questions about whether or not Musk's demand is actually real. At one point, he commented on social today that this was simply a way to get people to respond to an email to see if they could actually do it. One business analyst told Fox 5 today he believes this may be a way to frustrate federal employees, to get them to quit on their own. Some federal workers told us today they will not go quietly.
I think that it's appalling, and I think that ordinary people should be out here like I am, as angry as federal workers are.
They get quote unquote homework, and I think he said if you don't do it, it's considered a resignation. Yeah, so that's crazy.
While it got a lot of headlines, and it's made a lot of people scared, especially on top of what Elon Musk has been doing.
As for the litigation, a spokesperson for the White House today called it a frivolous lawsuit.
Elon Musk has been lying through his teeth to the American people. What he's doing is trying to dismantle very important services that benefit all of the American people to make room for tax cuts for very rich people and billionaires, people like Elon Musk.
So it's completely inhumane what he's doing, by the way, and quite frankly, it's crazy that this is his approach.
We are seeing real crises that Elon Musk, who's a billionaire who never has to think about where his next meal is coming from.
Come on, you got to give a report on what you're doing at work while our tax dollars pay you. Many Republican lawmakers say this is not a big ask.
There are roughly 3 million
federal workers. The price tag that the taxpayers pay is right at $271 billion a year. Is it too much to ask for them to verify why they're making an average salary of $106,000 a year? We're the ones who are paying the bills. We have a right to know. And Elon Musk is, the numbers don't lie on what he's finding out.
All right, so what do American voters think? A new national poll finds 42% of them support Musk cutting waste. The party divide is huge. Nearly all Republicans are on board. Hardly any Democrats.
And then agencies started to use caution. You had the Pentagon telling employees, look at this, please pause any response to the OPM email titled, "What did you do last week?" Then FBI Director Kash Patel emailed his employees, quote, "When and if further information is required, we will coordinate the responses. For now, please pause any responses." Despite the muddled communications, the president says, quote, "Elon Musk is doing a great job, but I would like to see him get more aggressive. Remember, we have a country to save, but ultimately to make greater than ever before, MAGA." And Elon Musk justified his email, or the DOGE email rather, saying, quote, "The reason this matters is that a significant number of people who are supposed to be working for the government are doing so little work that they are not checking their email at all. In some cases, we believe non-existent people or the identities of dead people are being used to collect paychecks. In other words, there is significant outright fraud."
We want people who have been working jobs, many of them working remote, not showing up to the office in years, many of them working only one day a week in the office. Tell us what you're doing with your time.
Now, Democrats and unions have tried to stop Elon Musk and DOGE from doing what they want to do, but they keep running into roadblocks in court. For instance, the judge is ruling that USAID can move ahead and place all direct hire personnel around the globe, with a few exceptions, on administrative leave, Harris.
Where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great. Because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows that they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, where is all that? Where's the money going? We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far. And we've just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there. Because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people, please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
Some agency has